Taking a look back at Game 4 and ahead to tonight's Game 5. Sean Deveney from Sporting News covers the NBA. As he writes, it's time for Klay Thompson and the Warriors to show some gumption in this game. Is Draymond Green really the glue that holds that team together? And should he have been suspended? A lot of differing opinions on that one. We'll bring Sean into the conversation as he joins me now on a Sports Bash Monday here on 97.3 ESPN. Hey, Sean, how are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. How are you?
Always good, and looking forward to maybe a good game. This series has not been the best series. These whole playoffs have not been great, other than maybe the Golden State coming back against Oklahoma City. But first, let me start with Green and get your opinion whether or not you thought he should have been suspended for this game and how the NBA has handled this whole situation.
Well, I think the important thing to remember is that he wasn't technically suspended for that play. He was assessed for flagrant foul. He had 4 flagrant foul points, and that triggers the suspension. So the question is, did he deserve the flagrant foul? And I don't think he did. I think if you look at what he actually did, what actually happened, I can't see that. Limited contact, different replays showed different things, but it did not look like, any way you look at it, that there was a whole lot of contact there. And to get a flagrant foul for that, I think, is pretty weak. Now, there's no question that they took into consideration all the complaints that there have been about Draymond Green and some of the things that he's done. Of course, the Steven Adams kick. So, from that perspective, it makes a little more sense. But I still think if you take the play and isolate it and look at it as it is, I just can't see a flagrant foul there.
Sean, obviously Curry's the star. He's the MVP of the league, unanimous, first time ever. But is he the MVP of his own team?
Well, in the regular season, yeah, but he just hasn't been in the playoffs, and it's the second finals in a row, really, where he hasn't necessarily been. He had a great Game 4. If he comes back and has a great Game 5, and that's what finishes off Cleveland, maybe that whole line of thought disappears. But he hasn't really been great in the finals, really, either of the years. I don't know that you could say though that he's not the most important player, just because of so much of what he does that allows the rest of the Warriors to play the way they do. I would have to say he is the most important, but really in the finals they've found ways to deal with Cleveland trying to take him out and trying to make him ineffective.
Sean Deveney's with us, Sporting News, NBA writer. Sean, then, what are the Warriors without Green? How would you surmise that this team's identity will be without Draymond Green for the night?
It's funny because, he's a defensive player of the year, but I don't think he gets enough credit for what he does defensively and how he makes that defense work. The fact that he can switch, from a 5 to a 1, he can go and cover your center. He can cover your point guard just as well. That is what allows them to play defense the way they do. When they do all that switching, it's predicated on him. So without him in there, that's going to be the real challenge. As far as I can tell, they go on these 12-1 runs, these 14-2 runs that really seem to bury teams. That's sort of their calling card. And in a 14-2 run, the 14 is nice, but so is the 2. And that's where Draymond Green is going to have the biggest impact, or him being absent is I don't know that defensively they can play as well as they do when he's in there. I just don't think he can be replaced as far as that goes.
Right now, if they close out the series tonight, Sean, who is the MVP of this series for Golden State?
Yeah, it's a tough question because I would have said Draymond Green, but if you got a guy who isn't there for Game 5, it's hard to give it to him. So it's really up in the air. You could argue even Iguodala possibly. You could argue that Steph Curry, depending on how it goes tonight, will wind up with. But I don't think you'd look at where they are right now and knowing that Green's not going to be out there. I don't know that you can say. I think tonight's game is probably going to swing it. If they win, whoever has the best game might wind up getting himself the MVP.
Can you imagine Iguodala, 2-time Finals MVP? I mean, that would be wild, wouldn't it?
Yeah. coming off the bench, in his early 30s, it's just not the guy you would expect. But you could certainly, I mean, look, he's done a great job on LeBron, and when he goes up on LeBron, he really does clamp down on him, and I think he gets in LeBron's head a little bit. So you could certainly make the case for him.
Sean Deveney's with us, Sporting News, covering the NBA Finals. Let's look at LeBron in this Cavs team. We know the narrative. He could be 2-5, and this series is, I don't know, how would you define the series LeBron has had?
Not impactful. I think that's the thing, is his numbers are fine, but he hasn't had the impact. Certainly not like he did last year. But you kind of knew that with Love and Kyrie Irving in there that he wasn't going to have the same numbers, because he was going to have the same numbers that he did last year. But there hasn't been a time where you can say, okay, LeBron's taken over right now. He has not done that. And there's been times, obviously down 3-1, you would like to see at least one game where your star player really asserted himself and took over the game. I just don't know that we've seen that from him. And, maybe it happens tonight, but I just don't think he's had the kind of impact that you would expect on a series like this, especially with his team, struggling the way it has.
So at the end of this, if it's a 2-5 finals record for him going into next year, I can't put my finger on this. Is a transcendent talent, a transcendent player. Do we say he's just not a transcendent winner? I mean, what do we surmise LeBron? I can't think of another player who has that record at that level of talent.
Well, Jerry West was in that same sort of, but you have to go pretty far back in the history books to find a guy who could get to the finals all the time and just have no luck really winning them. And West, of course, won later in his career. But that's really the only guy that I could possibly compare him to. You can't complain because the guy gets to the finals. He gets there. It's just it's tough once he gets there to win. Part of that is they've faced some really tough teams. I mean, that first year they had no business being in the finals, the Cavaliers, and they got swept by the Spurs. These last 2 years they've had they just haven't had the talent that the Warriors have had. So you can look at it and really say there's only one. That one against Dallas that he probably should have won, that he didn't. So but people don't put that kind of nuance into these things. So he's going to have the reputation, as a guy who can get there, but not necessarily win it as much as he should.
What are you doing with Love tonight?
I got to keep him on the bench. I don't think you want to change that. Even though they lost that last game, the first quarter was basically tied. I think it was 29-28. So, they had a good start. So, just what we've seen from the starting lineup with Love in it and without Love in it, I think you got to keep it as it is and hope that he can get going coming off the bench.
He's an interesting guy. He actually had some comments today that basically admitting that this has not been what he kind of thought it was, but he said we're a very tight-knit group. It's not that. It's just that I've been asked to be the two some nights, the third guy, more nights than not. Let me get your take then on the second guy then, Irving, because if you look at last year, they went 6 games. They added Love and Irving, who did not play in that series last year. So you're saying, all right, they've added 2 really good players to this team. Why did they have more success last year with that team than they have with this team this year?
Yeah, well, I think for one thing, I think the Warriors are better. I think last year the Warriors were trying to figure some things out, and I think they've gotten there. So I think you start with that. But yeah, they don't seem to work very well with Love. Even as they were rolling through the Eastern Conference playoffs, I mean, they were playing much inferior teams. Love has, and you got to remember when they got him. I remember Chris Bosh saying, he doesn't know what he's in for. That it's a lot tougher as a big man to figure out how to play with LeBron than you possibly could imagine. That's what Chris Bosh said, and he certainly had to work at figuring that out. And I just don't think Love has ever gotten there. On both ends of the floor. Obviously he's not a great defensive player, and then offensively, he doesn't know whether he should be in the post, whether he should be out in the perimeter. Those are tough things to get used to when you're dealing with the guy like LeBron, who he's going to be on the perimeter if he wants to. He's going to be on the post if you want to, and you've got to react to that. And I don't think Kevin Love has ever gotten comfortable with that.
Sean Deveney, Sporting News with us. Game 5 tonight. No Draymond Green. So is no Draymond Green enough to bring this back to Cleveland?
It certainly, obviously, it gives them a better chance. I still think that going into Oracle Arena is not something that the Cavaliers want to be doing right now. I would give him a chance, but I would still, if I were a betting man, I would have my money firmly on the Warriors. I just think that there's enough there that they can make up for his absence in one game.
All right, let's look at some other NBA things here locally with Sean, and some interesting stuff here locally with the Sixers. They worked out Brandon Ingram today. Most people think they're going Simmons. Any read on what the Sixers are going to do at the top of the draft?
Yeah, I think this is sort of standard procedure. Of course, you're going to give the guy a workout and give him a look and consider what your options are. There's a chance you might acquire another pick down the line here. So, you want to keep all your options open for sure, but I still think it's Simmons number one. I still haven't seen anything that makes me think they won't go in that direction. You could certainly argue that Ingram with his shooting and things like that would have more of an immediate benefit, but I just think Simmons is such a unique talent. I think you've got to go with him.
All right, we know the financial impact of Saric if he stays in Europe. The Sixers went over there. They tried to woo him. He has said that he wants to come over. He has told people that he will come over. In the end, will the monetary loss for him overrule his word in that he will come over? Do you think Saric stays in Europe for another year?
I think he comes over. We'll have to see exactly. But I think he's certainly ready to kin his any clock because there's a lot of money involved there too. If you can once you get past your deal and the longer you wait, the longer it's going to take you before you can cash in a major contract. So yeah, I think the time has come where he's going to have to make that sacrifice in the short term for the benefit in the long term.
All right, Sean. Joel Embiid has been given hints all over the place. There's video of him today dunking all over the place, but he will not play in the summer league. However, is the word on the street that Embiid will finally be ready at the start of this season?
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing. We'll see if that's actually the case, but they're certainly operating under the assumption that he'll be ready to start the year. Of course, they have no idea what they have, and they have no idea how ready he is to play. It's one thing to be able to walk and run and all that, but playing NBA level basketball, that's still going to take him some time, even if he is 100% healthy. So, yeah, I think he'll physically be ready, but I think he'll have a long way to go before he's ready to be a contributor.
All right, a lot of more Sixer stuff here. Sean Deveney, Sporting News NBA writer. Some reports at the Okafor Noel that one of those guys that are going to be gone. The Sixers seem to be leaning towards keeping Noel over Okafor. Is that the smart move?
Yeah, I can understand why. I think Noel is more of a known commodity in terms of what he can do defensively, and I think just with Okafor, you're worried that he's the guy who's going to score 20 and give up 25 on the other end. So, I think that's where the thinking is on that. And plus, you can probably get a little more for Okafor. They did have, the disciplinary issue as well. So, he certainly makes more sense as far as doing that. But, I also think that the upside is more in Okafor's favor. That there's what his possibilities are higher than Noel's. But they're in a situation where they want to start turning the corner here. So if they can get something who can a young guy who can contribute right away, then I think that's something that they'll look for.
All right, Sean, a report in Boston says they are really shopping the number 3 overall pick. Now, Okafor and Boston's name came up at the deadline. Would this deal then make sense here at the draft? Okafor's name in Boston with that 3 pick. Is the number 3 pick enough for you to send Okafor to Boston if that were to happen?
Yeah, I think so. You probably want a player in return as well, and the Celtics have some decent contributors, whether it's a Sullinger or Kelly Olynyk, not all-star caliber players by any stretch, but decent producers who they could send along with that pick. And if you get that, then I think that's something that you've got to consider because I think even at number 3 you're going to be able to find a guy who there's a drop off obviously after the first 2 guys, but I don't think that the drop off is such that you wouldn't be intrigued by having another crack at it. That's, like I say, that's why they're going to work out some of these guys who you might not think of as potential number one picks.
Has John Calipari done to sell you on Jamal Murray at either number 1 or at number 3?
Not at number 1. At number 3, I would buy. He's, especially in today's game, he really seems to be a good fit. Not a great playmaker as a point guard, but he's got size and he can handle the ball and he can shoot. And in today's NBA, that seems to be where the point guard position is. So I think at number 3, I could certainly see it. Number 1, not so much, but I could see him at number 3.
All right, Sean Deveney, Sporting News. So let's go back to the NBA Finals. Get your take for tonight. Who wins tonight?
I think the Warriors need some Klay Thompson here. I think he needs to come out, have a big game. He did a little bit of trash talking yesterday. I think he needs to back that up with the big game. He has not had one yet in these finals. He was pretty good in Game 4. I think he had 24, 25 points. But he really needs to be a guy who kind of carries that offense. And then they've just got to scramble around just enough on defense without Draymond Green that they can win it. So I think the Warriors wind up winning it even without Green.
All right, that's tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. And great stuff from Sean on the NBA over at Sporting News and at Sean Deveney, on Twitter. And you can get more on the NBA Finals from him over there. And we appreciate the time, Sean. Great stuff.
All right, thanks for having me.